Howdy and welcome back. So we're going to start this video off with a couple of examples of formatted read errors. So I guess it's important to point out first is that whenever we're using the extraction operator, we are reading objects of an expected type from the stream. What we'll see is that a formatted error is going to occur when the type of object that we're attempting to read does not match up with what we're looking to read it into. We'll see here kind of the implications of such an error, and then we'll slowly through the remainder of this lesson begin to resolve those errors so that we can skip over um, basically things that aren't meeting our expectations. So let's begin with our first example here. So to go ahead and set up this first example is we're going to attempt to execute a formatted read into an object. What we're specifically looking for in this block of code is any sort of number to be written to standard input. And we're going to expect that the object that the user provides to us is going to be an integer that can be read into our expected type here. And that will be stored in the object any number. So we go ahead and prompt the user, go ahead and enter any number, and then we request them to enter that value through standard input. So we're attempting to read an object of an expected type and format, and what we'll see here in our first error is that we're not going to have a match here. So we run the program, and the user enters, instead of a valid integer value, A and B. So notice here, we're dealing with a character and not an integer value. We start out our program, any number is going to take on 0, and we begin reading from our stream, which has been loaded with the characters A and B. So we go ahead and put out our extraction arm, we latch on to the first character within this sequence, and we check to see whether or not it's going to match our expected type. In this case, it doesn't, so that read is going to fail. Again, the extraction operator is intended for formatted input, the reading of objects of an expected type and format. And what we've just seen here is that this character is not meeting those expectations. So in this particular case, the read has failed. So when we hit that output to standard out, we see here that the contents of any number has not changed because that read never succeeded. So our second example, we're going to introduce a couple of new topics. The first one is that essentially every stream is going to have some sort of state associated with it, whether it's going to be our CN stream or some sort of input file stream or otherwise. We'll see here that we can ask the state of the stream through a number of functions, one of which is we could ask the stream whether or not it is good. And this is essentially going, hey, IFS, did your previous input operation or previous read actually succeed? If the state is good, the next input operation might succeed. Otherwise, it might fail. Now we can also ask the stream if it is in a bad or fail state. And the difference between these is very subtle. When the state is failed, but not also bad, it is assumed that the stream is uncorrupted and that a recoverable error has occurred. When the state of the stream returns, when we ask the stream if it's bad, if that returns true, essentially what's happened is that an unrecoverable error has occurred. So the sorts of errors that we're looking to address within this lesson are going to be essentially those when the state of the stream is fail but not bad. And I want to just point out here, bad returns true if we have a corrupted stream and an unrecoverable error has occurred. Fail returns true for the same reason as bad, or if a recoverable error has occurred. So typically what we'll see is if we're asking the stream about its state, we'll first check bad, and then by process of elimination, if bad is false but fail is true, we know that a recoverable error has occurred, and we can go ahead and address that. Let's go ahead and just walk through this. We have the file data.dat bound to IFS. We're going to attempt to do a formatted read of integer objects into value, and we're essentially going to continue reading from data.dat as long as the stream state is good. So we haven't met the end of the file, and each read has, to the point of the check of the conditional, has succeeded. So initially, everything's good. We'll hop in and we'll begin extracting from our stream, which has been populated with the contents of the file 1, 2, A3, with each character separated by a white space. Notice that the body of my while statement simply prints out the red value to standard output. It's doing nothing of interest. So we go ahead and we attempt the first read. And this formatted read succeeds. We were expecting an integer object and we got one. Again, the extraction operator is white space delimited. So we read up to that white space and went ahead and populated value with 1. And accordingly, you can see that directly after that read, we simply outputted the value to standard output. So everything's going good at this point. We pop over that white space. We attempt to read the next integer value within this file. 2, that is going to match the format we're expecting. We'll go ahead and read it into value. The read will succeed. The state of the stream at this point is still good. We jump into the body of the while statement again, and we attempt the read. At this time, notice that our kind of extraction arm has latched onto a character, and that a character is not going to meet our assumption or match the format of the type of object we're attempting to read into. So in this case, we have a formatted read that has failed. So in this case, right when we execute this line on this character and essentially have that mismatch within the format of what is in the file versus that of which our program was expecting, we can see here that the state of the stream is no longer going to be good. Notice that we didn't have corruption or some sort of unrecoverable error occurred. So bad is going to continue to evaluate to false. If we ask, hey, IFS, are you bad? It's going to say no. However, if we ask it whether it's failed, in this case, the formatted read failed, meaning fail in this case, we'll go ahead and return true. So at this point, that read has failed. The stream, the state of the stream is no longer good. So obviously, when we get back up to evaluate this conditional, we're not going to continue reading from the file because the state of our stream has finally evaluated to false. And we'll look at how to recover from this later on within the next 2 lesson videos. But it's important to note here that during this fail, if we're attempting to read into value and this operation has failed, the value of V in most cases would remain unchanged. In that case, we would expect it to probably be the previous value. However, in this particular case, what's going to happen is the input file stream is able to essentially handle a failed read on a integer value, and it will go ahead and handle that failed read by assigning it value, being it the 0 value of its type. Hence, we're observing 0 in this particular scenario. And as one might suspect, 0 would be outputted. Even though this read failed, we're still going to execute the next line of code. It's just we won't get back into the body of our while statement because, well, the state of the stream is no longer good. So 0's output, we're still latched onto A, but at this point, we're done. So the next question is, how can we reset these flags back to good? And then how could we skip over A or release A so that we could move on to the next value if, say, a formatted read failure did occur? And we'll begin building that up here in the next lesson. We'll talk about one common, I guess, mistake that students make, and this is more or less the result of having to employ 2 functions and the naming of them. It's very easy to kind of confuse one with doing 2 operations when in fact this is going to be spread out across 2 different 2 steps to actually resolve this error. So we'll get into that here next, and then we'll continue on with actually recovering from those errors, and then we'll just provide a brief discussion that recaps what we've shown by example in a more formal way.